In today's world, it's incredibly difficult to stand out as a game because there are so many big AAA releases that smaller games are usually getting buried under the hype of those games. And I think that is wrong. And I think creators like me can fix this a little bit by providing a spotlight to the games that do not have huge marketing budgets, cannot pay creators or anyone else to market their game, and just want to make games just for the sake of it. In this series, we're going to take a look at underrated gems of Steam and finding out the games that are actually worth your time and worth your money. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 3 different indie games that I played recently, and they are actually very small and niche games. None of those games has actually more than 200 reviews, and 2 of those 3 games actually don't even have in 100 reviews. And I think all of those games are worth your time and money, and you can decide the rest after watching this video. And the first game that I want to touch is Roots of Yggdrasil. It's a $10 indie game, which is pretty interesting in how many different mechanics of different games it actually unites. This game actually has the mechanics of Slay the Spire, FTL, and Civilization with its own flavor. And to explain what this game is kind of like a strategy roguelike. In this world, the Ragnarok has happened. And by the way, it's based on kind of like a Norse mythology. Ragnarok has happened and the world is basically dead. And there are only very few people that survived, and one of those people are actually you and your crew. And you actually have some type of flying ship that will also travel from island to an island between realms as well. And your goal is actually to found and then sustain the settlement that, well, will live in this post-apocalyptic world. But how does it play? Well, this game actually has kind of like a 2 layers of playing, very similar to FTL and Slay the Spire. First is the map gameplay. You're moving from island to island, from node to node, and each node can be kind of like story-driven node. Like, for example, you can meet some type of creatures that will give you some type of treasures or artifacts. You can find some real resources that you can use on your next run or in your settlement, and things like that. Or it can be an actual gameplay node where you zoom in and you start playing an actual main part of the gameplay. And the most important part, you're actually limited with the type of moves that you can make because you're actually followed by some type of evil or dark fog that if it will catch you, well, it's kind of like in FTL. The game will become much more challenging. Basically, you will lose. And when you start playing an actual map, well, that's actually where the Slay the Spire continues, because this is a card-based game. Every turn, well, because you actually have turns in the game, just like in Civilization games, you have a certain type of cards. And these cards are basically buildings that you can build. And as you progress through the game, you're unlocking different types of buildings, and each building falls under different categories. It can be the resource buildings, it can be an amenities, it can be housing or military buildings, or some type of different utility building. And on each map, you actually have a few different type of resources. First is your population, then there is your money, then there is your military power, and there is also some type of ethereal type of energy. I actually forgot what it's called actually. This kind of gives you like magical powers and things like that. And your goal is to collect a different type of magical saplings. And these saplings are spread all around the map, and you cannot actually reach all of them at once. You need to build your buildings to increase your population. You will need to build barracks to increase your military power, which will allow you to unlock these different paths to different parts of the map. Also, the usage of cards costs you money, which you need to generate with your population and with your resources, like mining iron or wood, which is done by specific buildings. And cards that will be dealt to you will be different on every turn. And when you get to those trees with saplings that you want, each tree will require a separate type of requirements. For example, it can be a certain number of population, certain amount of money, certain amount of magical energy, or it will require specific buildings built beside it, and it can be like a number of buildings. And to actually win this map, you need to collect a specific amount of saplings that's required on a map. It can be 1, 2, or more. And what's important, you are also limited in turns, because this evil dark fog is actually getting to the map and it starts to cover the map, which makes this part of the map basically unplayable. And after you're done with the run, you're actually unlocking and upgrading your base, and etc. To be fair, this game is surprisingly well built and surprisingly beautiful looking as well. The art style of this game is very interesting and very nice, and it's a prime example of a very beautiful indie game. And for $10, it's absolutely worth it. And not a lot of people are playing this game. This game has less than 200 reviews, and at any given time, only a few hundred people are actually playing this game. Usually it's less than 100. Even though it's not very much obscure and unknown, it's still very niche game that not a lot of people actually have heard about, and I guess I want to fix this with this video. And by the way, Roots of Yggdrasil runs very well on a handheld consoles. Next game is very interesting because it's a weird mix of survival and a factory building, and it is another $10 game. And don't let this pixel look fool you, because this game feels and runs incredibly well, because this game is very fast paced. But you're playing on randomly generated maps, and your goal is to collect resources and build different type of automations. And these resources are popping up randomly on a map, and it's not that it will pop up and it will stay like that. Resources will actually disappear after some time to reappear on other places. And I don't want to spoil a lot about this game, but this game actually has a multi-planet travel as well. And what you do is you run around, collect resources resources and start crafting different types of buildings and different type of resources, which will allow you to start automation. And to start automation, you can actually build drones that will collect resources for you in a certain amount of space, which in turn will require energy, which in turn will require to, well, gather energy manually by using a treadmill. You can actually literally run on a treadmill to generate energy. You can store energy in batteries, or you can actually generate energy with solar power a bit later in the game, or using fuel generators, fuel collecting of wood and coal. And as you progress, you're unlocking research buildings that allows you to unlock more powerful buildings, allowing you to create different alloys. And this goes on for not really long, to be fair, because this game is not as deep as Satisfactory or Factorial, but it's actually much simpler than those games. I mean, easier to get into, but you can actually go through a very interesting run in just few hours. And because the game is very fast paced, you're not slow on the map. You are actually moving very quickly. The game is very interesting, to say the least, and unfortunately not a lot of people are actually playing this game. Because of this main reason, it's still in early access. But don't get me wrong, this is one of the few games that actually deserve support, because updates are actually being released quite regularly. And because the game is incredibly simplistic looking, the updates are not that difficult to make as well. And most importantly, this game runs like butter even on the lowest TDPs on a handheld PCs. Because of this, you can play this for hours and hours on end. This game has way less than 100 reviews, and I 100% recommend to get it and play it. And last but not least, this is the game that is cheaper than any of those games, which you can get for around $7, and which will probably suck up a lot of your time. This game actually was released in 2023. It has 96% review rating on Steam, even though it has less than 60 reviews. And this is Oxytone. Oxytone is actually your hexagonal puzzle game that was popularized by games like Dove Romantic, even though I doubt that they were the first. Oxytone is actually a very interesting puzzle game. In this game, your goal is to create pathways. So you start your game with a central node, which will create a path. And your goal is to put hexagonal nodes in a way to create as long path as possible. And because those paths on each hexagons are very different, and you can actually rotate these hexagons in any way that you want, these paths can swirl and go around back and forth like crazy. And you can create very long paths, and it requires quite a lot of strategy and thinking to get to the goals. And yeah, your goal is to get certain amount of points on each level to progress to the different levels. And when I say that this game is addicting, I'm lying to you, because this game is incredibly addicting. You will play this game for hours and you will not realize how hours have passed. And this is one of the few games that is great for absolutely everyone, no matter the age, because everyone will be able to play and understand this. This is the game that non-gamers will easily understand and enjoy playing. But don't get me wrong, this is not an easy game. This is quite difficult. But because of its very small size, which is incredibly easy to run on basically anything, and yeah, this game is actually out, I think, on the phones as well. This is one of few games that is must-have for basically everyone. Yeah, and yet, despite the game actually being fully released, it's not in early access. The game is actually still receiving some type of interesting updates. So I think that this game is absolutely worth time. Overall, those three games are very different from each other. But their core thing is that they are very interesting and fun time to play. Even if you will not play this for a really long time, like for example, Starground is probably shortest of them all, but mainly because it's not fully done yet, you will still get more than enough for your money and support amazing indie devs. So yeah, 100% recommend to get all of these games. This will be it for today, and despite how this video will perform, I think I will probably continue creating this series, because yeah, I have quite a lot of games that are very niche, very small, and require some attention. So yeah, I think I will be doing a disservice to myself and to everyone else if I will not be talking about them. This will be it for today. Thank you for being here with me. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want more videos like this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Take care.